The courtroom is silent until a single line shatters everything. I was never his wife, not in the eyes of the law. And just like that, decades of love, loyalty, and sacrifice are suddenly on trial. If you think you know the truth behind this family, you don't. Stay with me, because what unfolds inside this courtroom will change everything you thought you knew, and by the end, you'll have to decide who was right and who was lying. The doors swing open slowly, and the sound echoes through the packed courtroom. Every seat is taken. The stress is thick, almost suffocating. Cameras aren't allowed inside, but everyone knows this moment will be talked about everywhere. Kody sits at the defendant's table, his stance stiff, jaw tight. His eyes flicker between the judge and the women sitting across from him. These are not strangers. These are the women who once called him husband. Christine refuses to look at him. Her face is calm, but her fingers grip the edge of the table just a little too tightly. Janelle watches everything carefully, critical, almost detached, but there's something brewing beneath the surface. Meri sits quietly, her feelings unreadable. And Robyn looks like she's already on the verge of tears. The judge clears his throat, bringing the room to attention. This court will now hear the case regarding financial misrepresentation, emotional damages, and disputed marital claims. The words hang in the air. This isn't just about relationships anymore. This is about money, property, truth, and betrayal. Kody leans forward, saying something to his lawyer. His confidence is still there, but it's thinner now. Cracks are starting to show. Christine is the first to be called. She stands slowly, walking toward the witness stand. Every step feels heavy, like she's carrying years of silence with her. When she sits, she doesn't look at Kody. Not once. State your name for the record, Christine. Her voice is steady, stronger than anyone expected. And your relationship to the defendant? There's a pause. Just a second, but it feels like forever. I was his wife. Was. That one word changes everything. The lawyer steps closer. Christine, can you explain to the court why you are here today? She exhales slowly, her eyes finally lifting, not toward Kody, but toward the judge. I gave everything to that family. Years of my life. I raised children, supported a system that promised fairness. Her voice tightened slightly, but behind the scenes, things weren't equal, not even close. Kody shifts in his seat. Christine continues, money was being moved. Decisions were being made, without all of us, and some of us were left with nothing. A murmur ripples through the hall. Robyn's eyes well up quickly. She shakes her head, already upset. Kody's lawyer rises quickly. Objection, speculation, sustained, the judge answers. Stick to facts, Christine nods. The facts are simple. I trusted him. And that trust was broken. She looks just briefly toward Kody. And in that split second, there's no love left, only sadness. The courtroom tension rises as documents are presented, financial records, land ownership papers, transfers, numbers that tell a story no one expected to see laid out so clearly. Janelle's name shows on one document, then goes on another. Meri's engagement is inconsistent, confusing. But Robyn's name appears again and again. The camera may not be in the room, but if it were, it would zoom in right now. Because everyone sees it. Janelle leans forward slightly, speaking to her lawyer. Christine watches quietly. And Kody looks nervous for the first time. Robyn wipes a tear, her voice barely holding together as she says, "This isn't fair." But the proof doesn't lie. The lawyer turns back to Christine. Were you aware of these financial decisions when they were made? No, she says firmly. Did you ever agree to them? No. And how did that make you feel? There's another pause. This one is larger. Like I didn't matter, the room goes completely still. As Christine steps down, the energy in the courtroom changes again. This is no longer just a court battle, it's personal. Janelle is called next. She walks with purpose. calm, controlled, but there's fire behind her eyes. When she sits, she looks straight at Kody, and this time he doesn't look away. Janelle, the lawyer starts, "Were you financially impacted by the defendant's decisions?" She doesn't pause. "Yes. Can you explain how?" She leans forward slightly. "I invested in this family, not just emotionally, but financially. And somewhere along the way, openness disappeared." Kody shakes his head slightly, clearly irritated. Janelle adds, "I started noticing patterns. Certain accounts, certain decisions, they didn't include everyone equally, and who did they include?" The question hangs in the air like a loaded weapon. Janelle's eyes flash for just a moment. Then she says it. "Robyn." A sharp intake of breath echoes across the room. Robyn immediately starts crying. "That's not true," she says through tears. "That's not fair." But Janelle doesn't move. She just watches. Calm. Steady. Certain. Kody suddenly stands. "I need to say something," he blurts out. His lawyer tries to stop him, but it's too late. "This is all being twisted," Kody says, his voice louder than before. "Everything I did for the family." The judge raises a hand. "Mr. Brown, you will wait your turn, but the damage is already done." Because now the mental wall has cracked open. Christine looks down, shaking her head. Janelle's face hardens. Meri finally looks up, really looks up, for the first time. And Robyn. Robyn looks scared. The judge calls for a short recess, but no one moves right away. Because something is building, something bigger than anyone expected. As people slowly begin to stand, whispers fill the room. Christine steps back, taking a deep breath. Janelle walks past Kody without saying a word. Meri pauses for a moment, then quietly follows. And Robyn stays sitting. Frozen. Kody leans toward her, speaking urgently, but we don't hear what he says. What we do see is her response. Shock. Fear. And something else. Guilt? The courtroom feels different after the recess, heavier, like the air itself knows something is about to shift, and when everyone slowly returns to their seats, there's a quiet tension that wasn't there before, the kind that makes people sit straighter, breathe slower, and watch more carefully. Because now it's no longer just about accusations, it's about what can actually be proven, and the moment the judge settles back into place, the clerk announces the next phase, and this time the name that echoes through the room is Meri, and for a second she doesn't move, she just sits there as if. The weight of years is pressing down on her shoulders, then finally she stands, her steps measured, almost hesitant, as she walks to the witness stand, and there's something in her face that no one has seen clearly before. Not even Kody. Something between regret and quiet determination. And when. She sits, she glances at him just once, and that single glance is filled with more history than any words could explain. "State your name," the lawyer says. And she answers softly but clearly, "Meri." And when asked about her relationship to Kody, there's a flicker of something in her eyes before. She says, "Legally, I was his wife," emphasizing the word legally in a way that immediately draws attention, because unlike the others, her position was always different, always more complicated, and the lawyer leans in slightly. Sensing the shift, "Meri, can you explain to the court what changed?" "In your legal relationship with the defendant," and the room goes still again, because everyone already knows part of this story, but no one knows all of it. Not like this, not under oath, and Meri exhales slowly before speaking, "I agreed to a legal divorce so he could marry Robyn." And the words land like a shockwave, even though they were known. Hearing them here, in this room, changes everything. Because now it's not just a family decision, it's evidence, it's part of a larger story, and Kody shifts again, clearly uncomfortable, while Robyn lowers her head, tears already forming, and the lawyer continues, "And why did you agree to that?" And Meri's voice tightens just slightly. "Because I was told it was for the good of the family." And there's a pause, a long one, before she adds quietly, "But I didn't realize what it would cost me." And that's when the courtroom truly leans in. because now it's not just about what happened, it's about what it meant. And the lawyer takes a step closer. What did it cost you, Meri? And she swallows hard before answering. Everything. My position, my security, my voice, and there's a tremor in her voice now. But she doesn't stop. After that, things changed, decisions were made without me, I wasn't included the same way anymore, and Kody shakes his head again. But this time, he doesn't interrupt, because even he knows this is dangerous ground, and Meri continues, I thought I was doing something selfless, something that would strengthen the family, but instead, it pushed me out. And the silence that follows is deafening, because this is the first time she's said it this clearly, this openly, and it hits differently here, under oath, where every word matters, and just when it feels like Meri has said everything. The truth takes a deeper, more painful turn. The lawyer nods slowly, then asks the question that changes everything. After the legal marriage between Kody and Robyn, did you notice any changes in financial control or decision-making? And Meri doesn't hesitate this time. Yes, she says firmly. And that one word immediately raises the tension again. Explain, the lawyer says, and Meri leans forward slightly, her hands clasped together. Before things were discussed, maybe not always fairly, but at least discussed, but after, it felt like decisions were already made before they ever reached the rest of us, and the lawyer presses further, and who was involved in those decisions, and again, the room holds its breath, because this question has already caused fractures. And Meri closes her eyes for just a second before answering Kody and Robyn, and there it is again. Another confirmation, another piece falling into place, and Robyn shakes her head, whispering no under her breath, but it's too late, because now it's not just one person saying it, it's a pattern, and patterns are hard to deny, and Kody leans toward his lawyer, clearly agitated, while the judge watches closely, and the lawyer continues, did you ever feel pressured to agree with these decisions? And Meri's voice drops slightly. Yes, she says. There were times when disagreeing just wasn't worth the consequences, and that line sends a ripple through the courtroom. Because now, the narrative is shifting from imbalance to pressure, from inequality to control, and Kody finally can't stay quiet anymore. That's not true, he says under his breath, but loud enough to be heard, and the judge immediately responds. Mr. Brown, you will remain silent, and Meri continues, her voice steadier now, almost as if speaking the truth is giving her strength. I stayed quiet for a long time, because I believed in the family, but silence doesn't fix anything, it just hides the problem, and there's something powerful in thee. Way she says it, something final, like she's closing a chapter she never thought she would, and just when it seems like Meri's testimony has reached its peak, a single document changes the direction of the entire case. The lawyer signals to an assistant, who brings forward a set of papers and places them on the stand. Meri, do you recognize these documents? And she looks down, her expression shifting almost instantly. Yes, she says quietly, and the lawyer nods. Can you tell the court what they are? And Meri hesitates for just a moment before answering. Property agreements and financial transfers, and the lawyer picks up one of the pages, and whose names are listed here, and Meri's eyes scan the document again, even though she already knows, Kody and Robyn, she says, and the lawyer continues, is your name listed on any of these primary ownership documents? And Meri shakes her head slowly no, and the impact of that simple answer is immediate, because now it's not just about feelings or perceptions, it's about documented exclusion, and the lawyer turns to the judge. Your Honor, these documents show a clear pattern of financial consolidation between the defendant and one spouse, while others were systematically excluded, and Kody's lawyer quickly stands, objection, interpretation, and the judge nods. The court will interpret the evidence, proceed carefully, and the tension is now at its highest point yet, because this is no longer just testimony, it's proof, and Meri looks up again, this time directly at Kody, and there's something different in her gaze now, not anger, not sadness, but clarity, and she says quietly, I trusted you, and Kody's expression falters just for a second, but it's enough for everyone to see. And the courtroom feels like it's holding its breath again, because that one sentence carries years of history, of decisions, of consequences, and just when it feels like the emotional weight can't get any heavier, the focus shifts to the one person who hasn't testified yet. The lawyer nods, signaling the end of Meri's testimony, and as she steps down, she doesn't look back this time. Not at Kody, not at Robyn, she just walks forward, as if leaving something behind forever. And the clerk's voice echoes again, calling the next witness, and this time, the name that fills the room is Robyn. And the reaction is immediate, a subtle shift in posture, in attention, in expectation, because everyone knows this is the moment where everything could either fall apart or finally make sense, and Robyn sits frozen for a second, her hands trembling slightly before Kody leans toward her, whispering, "Something urgent, something we still can't hear," and she nods slowly, as if convincing herself to stand, and when she finally does, her steps are unsteady, her composure fragile, and as she walks to the stand, all eyes are on her, not just watching, but questioning, analyzing, waiting, because now it's her turn to speak, her turn to explain, her turn to either confirm or deny everything that's been said so far, and as she takes her seat, wiping a tear from her cheek, the courtroom becomes completely silent again. The kind of silence that only exists right before something irreversible happens, and the lawyer approaches ready to begin, and Robyn looks up, her voice barely above a whisper as she prepares to answer the first question, and in that moment, one thing becomes painfully clear: whatever she says next will change everything. The tension in the courtroom is almost unbearable as Robyn takes her oath, her hands clasped tightly together, fingers trembling slightly, and when the lawyer begins, his voice measured calm, almost a sharp contrast to the storm inside her, he asks Robyn, "Can you describe your role in the family's financial decisions after your marriage to Kody?" And she swallows hard, glancing briefly at him before meeting the judge's eyes. "I tried to be involved, yes, but mostly I was following Kody's lead," she admits, and the words hang in the air like a delicate, fragile truth. Because everyone in that room knows the weight of influence, of control, and how it can quietly shift power. While Christine and Janelle exchange subtle glances, each reading the other's thoughts, and Meri's expression hardens, a mixture of vindication and disbelief, and the lawyer presses, "Did you ever feel that your involvement overshadowed the voices of the other wives?" And her eyes drop to the papers in front of her, trembling as she whispers, "Sometimes I didn't realize the consequences." And there's a pause so long it feels like time itself has stopped, the kind of pause that makes hearts race and palms sweat, and then she adds, almost inaudibly, "I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, but the courtroom feels like it's closing in." Because intent and outcome are two very different things, and Kody sits stiff, jaw tight, silently pleading that nothing she says will completely unravel the narrative he's tried to control for years, yet each word Robyn utters chips away at the image of harmony he's projected, and as she continues, her voice grows steadier, stronger. "I trusted him. I thought that we were working together as a family. But it wasn't balanced, not always fair, and some decisions, financial, personal, excluded others," and her gaze shifts momentarily to Christine, who doesn't flinch, who remains stoic but inwardly seething, and Janelle leans slightly forward, a subtle smirk crossing her face, sensing the tension rising, the drama reaching a boiling point, while Meri's hands tighten in her lap, knuckles white, and Robyn adds, "I realize now how it looked, how it could be perceived, and I regret the pain it caused," and the courtroom is silent again. The kind of silence that feels loaded, dangerous, as if waiting for the next spark to ignite the tinder, and then the lawyer brings up a series of emails and messages, printed and highlighted meticulously, and hands them to Robyn. "Are these familiar to you?" he asks, and she nods, eyes widening slightly. "Yes, these are from that period," and he Continues, do these show communication regarding financial decisions with Kody and the others? And she hesitates, biting her lip, yes, but they don't show the whole picture. And that statement immediately sets the room buzzing, tension rising again, because the incomplete picture is where. Suspicion thrives, and the lawyer presses, "Can you clarify what is missing?" And Robyn swallows, her voice wavering, certain discussions that I wasn't part of and that affected all of us, and as she speaks, the camera or the imagination of everyone present can almost see the weight of years pressing down, the whispered arguments, the private meetings, the secrets kept behind closed doors, and then comes the first crack in her composure, a slight tremble in her voice as she says, "I never wanted to be the cause of conflict," and yet her presence alone is stirring the very conflict she hoped to avoid, because truth has a way of forcing confrontation, and the lawyer leans in, softening his tone slightly to coax more from her. "Robyn, did you ever witness decisions being made that excluded other wives intentionally?" And she pauses, blinking back tears. "Yes, but it wasn't always obvious at the time. Only later did I see patterns, and the words feel like a dagger, slicing through layers of trust and denial, while Kody's posture stiffens, his palms pressing hard against the table, and the women across the room shift, exchanging looks that say everything without speaking, and then Robyn continues, her voice gaining momentum. "I was caught between loyalty to him and fairness to the family. I didn't always know the right choice, and sometimes I failed, and the weight of admission lands like a physical blow. Because in that confession is accountability, guilt, and an emotional rawness that no one can ignore, and Christine's eyes narrow slightly, Meri exhales slowly, and Janelle sits back, folding her arms, watching the storm unfold, sensing that the climax of this testimony is near, and the lawyer leans forward again. Did any disagreements escalate into emotional confrontations? And Robyn bites her lip, tears finally spilling down her cheeks as she nods, yes, arguments. Raised voices, moments where we all felt hurt and unseen. It wasn't always just me and Kody. Tensions bubbled between all of us. And she pauses, glancing at Meri, whose eyes glimmer with a mixture of validation and sorrow, and at Christine, who looks away sharply, refusing to meet anyone's gaze, and Janelle, whose small smile vanishes, replaced by a neutral mask that barely hides the satisfaction of hearing her own suspicions confirmed, and Robyn swallows, her voice softening. "I never imagined it would come to court. I never imagined it would be laid bare like this," and the room is almost suffocating in its silence. Everyone absorbing the gravity of her words, the culmination of years of hidden resentment and miscommunication now open for all to witness, and in that silence, one question hangs over the room. Heavier than any document or testimony, what will be revealed next, and who will survive the fallout? And then the lawyer gently but firmly presses, "Robyn, regarding the distribution of family assets, were you ever in a position to influence the outcome?" And she hesitates, thinking carefully. "Before responding, I had influence, but it was limited. Kody had the final say, and I trusted his judgment, and the pause afterward is loaded. Because trusting Kody in this context has caused ripples that no one can ignore." And Christine shifts in her seat, exhaling sharply, her jaw tight, while Meri's eyes narrow slightly, holding back years of judgment, and Janelle leans forward, fingers interlocked, watching with an intensity that is almost palpable, and Robyn continues, her voice steady now, "I tried to do what I thought was right, but hindsight shows mistakes, oversights, and pain caused," and that admission resonates like a drumbeat through the room, echoing in the hearts of everyone present. And then the lawyer presents a critical piece of evidence, a ledger meticulously detailed, showing transfers and ownership allocations, and hands it to Robyn. "Do these numbers align with your understanding of how assets were divided?" And she studies it carefully, her brow furrowing. "Some, but not all," she admits. "Certain allocations I didn't know about or understand fully at the time," and the subtle admission ignites curiosity, because now it's not just feelings being discussed, this is tangible evidence, numbers that tell a story, patterns of inclusion and exclusion, and the lawyer continues, can you explain why some wives were included while others were not? And Robyn swallows, eyes downcast, voice tight, I can't speak to every intention, I only know what I witnessed. Some decisions seem prearranged, others communicated poorly, some not at all, and the courtroom feels the weight of years of secrecy compressed into one moment. The tension thick, nearly visible in the still air as Kody shifts uncomfortably, and the women exchange subtle, knowing looks each. Recognizing the truth without needing it spelled out, and Robyn exhales, her shoulders slumping slightly as if the weight has finally pressed down on her completely. I didn't set out to hurt anyone, but the outcome, it speaks for itself, and the lawyer leans back, nodding, allowing the moment to sink in. Because truth is rarely comfortable, and in this case, it is shattering, and Robyn continues, her voice barely above a whisper, I can only testify to my experience. What I saw, what I felt, what I feared, and what I regret, and the pause afterward is almost unbearable, the kind of silence that demands reflection, judgment, and anticipation all at once, and just when the courtroom thinks it has reached the peak of tension, a new witness is called whose testimony promises to open wounds that no one is prepared for, and as the clerk calls the name, every head turns. Every breath is held, because the next story isn't just another perspective, it's a revelation that could redefine everything that's been said so far. Shaking alliances, testing loyalties, and igniting emotions that were carefully hidden for years, and the courtroom waits, electric with anticipation, for the next voice to step forward, the next truth to be revealed, and the next chapter of this family's stormy saga to unfold. The courtroom feels heavier than ever as the next witness is called, and every eye in the room shifts toward the door, waiting for the person who will bring the next wave of revelation. And when Janelle steps forward, there's a quiet intensity about her, a confidence tempered by years of navigating complex emotions and unspoken family rules, and as she approaches the stand, her posture straight, gaze steady, the room senses that this testimony will be unlike any other so far, because Janelle has always been the observant one, the quiet strategist, and now she holds the floor, ready to peel back layers of secrecy that have long lingered in the shadows, and when the lawyer asks her to state her name for the record, she does so firmly. Her voice calm yet commanding, Janelle, she says, and when asked about her relationship to Kody, she simply states, I am one of his wives, and the subtle clarity in her voice sets the stage for what comes next. Because unlike some of the others, Janelle is not seeking sympathy, she is not seeking validation, she is here to reveal, to explain, to show the court the intricate dynamics that have shaped years of their shared life. And the lawyer begins, Janelle, can you describe the family's financial structure after Kody's marriage to Robyn? And she leans forward slightly, hands clasped, voice measured, the structure changed. Certain choices became centralized. Certain voices were given more weight than others, and the words ripple through the room because everyone present understands the implications, and Kody shifts, his face tightening, jaw clenched, as he realizes that Janelle is about to expose truths that go beyond personal grievances and touch upon tangible power imbalances, and Janelle continues, I observed patterns over the years, decisions made in private conversations, transfers executed without discussion, and resources allocated selectively, and there's a pause, a breathless moment as the weight of her statement settles over the courtroom. Christine's eyes narrow slightly, while Meri sits rigidly, her fingers pressed against her lips, and Robyn's face flushes, a mix of anxiety and defensiveness, because now the narrative is shifting from perception to undeniable observation, and the lawyer presses, were you ever included in these decisions? And Janelle's eyes glint with quiet intensity. Included? Not fully. Some decisions, yes, but often only after they had already been made, and the subtle implication of exclusion hangs heavily, because it confirms what others have hinted at but could not fully prove, and the lawyer gently leans forward. Did you witness any actions that you felt were unjust or unfair to other wives? And Janelle takes a deep breath, steadying herself. Yes, Certain allocations, both financial and personal, seem to favor one partner over the rest. Patterns emerged over time, and with that, the courtroom tension spikes. Because she's connecting the dots with clarity, showing a deliberate imbalance that challenges the image of unity Kody has long maintained. And Kody shifts in his seat again, unease creeping into his posture while Robyn looks down, biting her lip, trying to maintain composure, yet the subtle tremor in her hands betrays her. And the lawyer continues, "Janelle, can you provide specific examples of these patterns?" And she nods, reaching for a set of documents she had prepared in advance, placing them carefully on the stand, and as the lawyer reviews them aloud, detailing property transfers, account allocations, and decision-making hierarchies, it becomes clear that there is a methodical pattern of favoring certain members, and Janelle explains, "These documents reflect what I witnessed and what I understood at the time. While I was aware of some discussions, others were completely outside my knowledge, and it affected our lives significantly, and her words echo in the courtroom, because the gap between knowledge and action is where resentment and tension thrive, and the lawyer leans in, emphasizing each point. Did this exclusion impact the relationships among the wives? And Janelle's expression hardens. Absolutely. Trust was eroded, communication faltered, and alliances shifted subtly but noticeably, and the subtle reference to alliances sparks a reaction. Christine's fingers clench around her notes, Meri exhales sharply, and Robyn blinks rapidly, struggling to maintain composure while Kody sits rigid, jaw tight, realizing that this is more than testimony, it is a strategic unveiling, and the lawyer presses further. Were there moments when these decisions led to emotional confrontations within the family? And Janelle's eyes glimmer, voice steady yet tinged with emotion, yes, arguments raised. Voices and long-standing grievances surfaced repeatedly. It wasn't always direct. Sometimes it was in subtle expressions, in sighs, in avoidance, but the effect was undeniable, and the courtroom feels the weight of her words, because these subtle confrontations often leave deeper scars than overt conflicts, and the lawyer continues, "Did you ever attempt to address these issues directly with Kody?" And Janelle nods multiple times. Discussions were attempted but often dismissed or redirected, leaving the core issues unresolved, and the frustration in her voice is palpable yet controlled, because she knows the importance of presenting a composed narrative, and the lawyer presses on, "Janelle, do you feel that some of them wives were given preferential treatment?" And her eyes flicker momentarily toward Robyn before she answers, "Yes. Certain privileges, responsibilities, and access were granted selectively, and the effects were felt by all of us in different ways, and the subtle confirmation lands like a spark, reigniting the tension between Robyn and the others, and Kody's hands tighten into fists as if restraining the urge to speak, but the judge's stern gaze keeps him silent, and the lawyer continues, "Can you explain how this preferential treatment manifested?" And Janelle gestures subtly toward the documents, financially, in property ownership, in decision-making authority, and emotionally, in how opinions were weighed or disregarded, and the courtroom takes in the gravity of her words, because this is not speculation, this is documented observation paired with lived experience, and Christine leans back, shaking her head subtly, while Meri's eyes narrow, absorbing every detail, and Robyn bites her lip, whispering under her breath, "I never meant for this." But her voice is drowned by the weight of the evidence and the testimony, and Janelle continues, "These patterns caused rifts, fostered resentment, and altered dynamics in ways that were not always visible, but they were felt by all of us." And the lawyer nods slowly, sensing that this is the emotional apex of the testimony, and he leans in one last time. "Janelle, did these experiences impact your perception of fairness and trust within the family?" And Janelle exhales deeply, her eyes steady, voice clear. "Absolutely. Trust was fragile, fairness inconsistent, and the consequences of these actions lingered for years, and the room is silent, the weight of years compressed into a few sentences, because the emotional resonance is as powerful as the factual evidence presented, and Kody's expression falters for just A moment revealing the human impact of these revelations, and the lawyer gently moves to the next line of inquiry. Were there moments when you felt caught between loyalty to Kody and loyalty to the other wives? And Janelle's voice softens slightly, tinged with both pain and clarity. Yes. I wanted to support him, but I also wanted equality, understanding, and respect for everyone. It was a delicate balance, often impossible to maintain, and the courtroom feels the tension tighten. Because her honesty illuminates the struggle that underlies years of complex family dynamics, and Robyn lowers her gaze, eyes wet, acknowledging silently the weight of Janelle's words. While Christine and Meri exchange subtle nods, each registering validation in a different form, and the lawyer presses, did these challenges influence your decisions or actions within the family? And Janelle leans forward, voice steady, yes. I chose carefully, tried to mediate, tried to observe, and sometimes had to step back to maintain peace, but it never erased the inequities I witnessed, and her admission resonates deeply, because stepping back often means silence, and silence can carry consequences, sometimes unseen, but always felt. And the lawyer asks, looking back, what would you have done differently? And Janelle's eyes soften, her voice reflective yet firm. I would have communicated more clearly, advocated more strongly, and ensured that decisions were more inclusive. But hindsight doesn't change the past, only informs understanding, and the subtle wisdom in her words gives the courtroom a moment of pause, because it balances accountability with reflection, a rare combination in such emotionally charged testimony. And the lawyer moves to close this segment. Janelle, your testimony provides crucial insight into the family dynamics, patterns of decision-making, and the emotional consequences of those actions. And she nods, her composure intact, yet the room feels the weight of every word, the tension lingering, because what she has revealed is both undeniable and deeply human. And as she steps down, a quiet but palpable shift moves through the courtroom, because her testimony has set the stage for the next act, a reckoning that will continue to unravel hidden truths, alliances, and betrayals, and just as the audience believes the drama has reached a peak, a new set of revelations is poised to ignite emotions even further, drawing everyone deeper into the web of family, loyalty, and truth, where every decision has a consequence and every word spoken carries the weight of years, leaving the courtroom bracing for what is about to come. Next, knowing that nothing will ever be the same. The courtroom is tense as the next witness is called, and the air feels almost electric, charged with anticipation, because everyone knows that the next testimony could shift the balance of understanding entirely. And when the clerk announces Meri's return to the stand, she rises slowly, each step measured, the weight of past grievances pressing down on her, and as she approaches the witness box, there's a quiet strength in her posture, a resolve tempered by years of navigating heartbreak, disappointment, and complex family dynamics. And when she sits, her eyes sweep the courtroom, lingering momentarily on Kody, then Robyn, and the subtle tension between the women is palpable, like a taut string ready to snap. And the lawyer begins gently. Meri, can you describe your role in the family's decision-making after your legal separation from Kody? And she inhales slowly, voice measured but tinged with emotion. I was excluded in ways that were sometimes obvious, sometimes subtle. My opinions were sought less, my presence felt less influential, and gradually I realized my position had changed drastically. And the courtroom reacts, because her words convey a quiet power, a truth that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. And Kody shifts in his seat, jaw tight, while Robyn's face tightens, her eyes flicking away, knowing that the narrative is once again tilting in a direction she cannot control. And the lawyer leans in, pressing for clarity. Meri, can you give specific examples of how your exclusion manifested? And she hesitates briefly, eyes closing. For a moment before opening to reveal a steely resolve, decisions about property, finances, even daily schedules were increasingly made without me. Meetings occurred where my opinion wasn't considered. Opportunities I once had were no longer available, and as she speaks, the weight of her words lands like heavy stones on everyone present, and Christine and Janelle exchange subtle glances, their silent communication conveying understanding and validation, while Robyn lowers her gaze, fingers twisting in her lap, and the lawyer presses further. Were there moments when this exclusion caused emotional distress or conflict within the family? And Meri's lips tighten as she exhales slowly. Yes. Hurt feelings escalated into arguments, misunderstandings compounded, and resentment grew, often silently, under the surface, affecting relationships and trust, and the courtroom feels the tension tighten like a vice, because emotional distress in such a closely knit family is never contained. It spills into every interaction, coloring perceptions and decisions, and the lawyer leans closer, voice softening. Meri, did you ever attempt to address these issues directly with Kody or the other wives? And she nods, voice steady, I did. Conversations were tried, requests for inclusion were made, but often they were met with dismissal or indifference. I was left to navigate the consequences largely on my own, and the subtle pain in her words resonates through the courtroom, because the struggle between loyalty, fairness, and personal dignity is something everyone can feel, even if they cannot articulate it, and Kody's fingers drum lightly on the table, betraying his agitation, while Robyn bites her lip, attempting to maintain composure, but the tremor in her hands is obvious, and the lawyer continues, Meri, can you describe any instances where these exclusions affected financial or legal decisions? And Meri leans forward slightly, the room hanging on her every word, yes. Property acquisitions, distribution of assets, and even the management of shared resources were often made without my input. Documents were signed, agreements made, and I only learned after the fact. And the gravity of this statement sends a ripple through the courtroom. Because it is one thing to feel excluded emotionally, but it is another entirely when exclusion manifests in legal and financial reality. And Christine shifts in her seat, fingers clenching subtly, while Janelle's eyes narrow, absorbing the implication, and the lawyer presses on. Were there times when these actions created tension between the wives? And Meri's voice tightens. Absolutely. Misunderstandings, perceived favoritism, and lack of communication fostered rivalries and deepened divides. And the courtroom is silent, the weight of unspoken history pressing down as each person contemplates the emotional fallout of years of hidden power dynamics. And then the lawyer presents a set of documents highlighted meticulously, showing timelines, property transfers, and communications, and hands them to Meri. Do these documents accurately reflect your experiences? And she studies them carefully. Voice calm but resolute. Yes, they correspond with what I observed and what I experienced, and the confirmation lands heavily. Because documentation paired with testimony creates a force that is difficult to counter, and the lawyer leans forward, can you explain the impact these decisions had on your daily life and emotional well-being? And Meri exhales, voice steady but soft. The impact was significant. Feelings of marginalization, uncertainty, and frustration became normal. Trust eroded, and I found myself questioning my role and value within the family, and as she speaks, the emotional resonance is profound, because it captures the human cost of exclusion, the subtle yet relentless erosion of identity and agency, and Kody shifts uncomfortably, hands clasped tightly. In front of him, while Robyn glances down, a tear tracing her cheek, barely contained, and the lawyer asks Meri, were there moments when you felt compelled to act for the sake of fairness or protection of your interests? And she nods slowly, yes. I sought clarity, requested documentation, and voiced concerns, but often met with resistance or deflection, leaving me to navigate a complex web of decisions largely alone, and the courtroom hangs on her words, because they illustrate a pattern of exclusion, and the human resilience required to endure it. And the lawyer continues, did these experiences alter your relationships with Kody and the other wives? And Meri's voice softens, tinged with sadness and resolve, yes. Relationships were strained, trust diminished, and mental distance grew. Bonds that once felt secure became fragile, and the courtroom absorbs the gravity of her statement, because emotional distance in such an intertwined family has cascading effects, influencing every interaction and decision. And the lawyer leans in again. Meri, can you describe a moment when tension or conflict reached a peak? And she inhales, eyes flicking momentarily to Kody. Yes. There were clashes, both overt and subtle, where frustrations boiled over. Voices were raised, tears shed, and the underlying resentment surfaced, exposing the fragility of our connections, and the courtroom feels the weight of years compressed into this testimony, because what was once private has now become public, and the subtle acknowledgments between Christine. Janelle and Meri convey validation, while Robyn's lowered gaze and trembling hands betray the internal conflict she feels, and the lawyer presses further. Did these confrontations lead to changes in decision-making or family dynamics? And Meri leans forward, voice steady, yes. Patterns changed, temporary alliances formed, and sometimes choices were reversed or reconsidered. But the underlying imbalance persisted, and the courtroom registers the complexity of long-term dynamics, because small adjustments rarely erase years of systemic issues, and the lawyer moves toward the next line. Meri, do you feel these patterns of exclusion contributed to your decision too? Legally separate, and she exhales slowly, a mixture of sadness and clarity in her voice. Yes. The accumulation of marginalization, diminished influence, and emotional strain made continuing in the same arrangement untenable, and the statement lands like a thunderclap, because it connects personal decisions to systemic patterns, illustrating how human behavior and emotion intersect with legal and financial realities. And Kody's posture stiffens, jaw tight, while Robyn glances down, fidgeting with her hands, sensing the inevitable consequences of the testimony, and the lawyer presents another set of documents, showing timelines of communication, resource allocation, and meetings, and asks Meri to verify them, and she nods, voice calm but firm. These accurately reflect what I experienced and observed, and the confirmation creates a tangible record of exclusion, further strengthening the narrative, and the lawyer leans back, allowing the moment to resonate. Meri, in. Reflecting on these experiences, how do you feel they have shaped your perspective on fairness, trust, and family dynamics? And Meri's voice is quiet but resolute. They have shown me the importance of transparency, equity, and mutual respect. Lack of these leads to tension, resentment, and emotional hardship, and the courtroom absorbs the depth of her insight, because it is both personal and universally understandable, and Christine and Janelle exchange subtle nods, acknowledging the validity, while Robyn's tearful expression hints at self-reflection and perhaps regret, and the lawyer gently moves to close the segment. Meri, your testimony provides crucial context regarding family structure, emotional dynamics, and decision-making patterns, and she nods, voice steady. I hope it clarifies the lived reality for everyone here. And as she steps down, a quiet shift moves through the courtroom, because the revelations have set the stage for the next phase, raising questions, challenging loyalties, and deepening the emotional complexity. And just as it seems the testimony has reached its emotional peak, a new revelation is poised to surface, promising to unravel hidden alliances and ignite unresolved tensions that will grip the courtroom and audience alike, leaving everyone questioning what truth, loyalty, and justice truly mean within this intricate family dynamic, drawing the audience further into the storm that has defined years of intertwined lives, where every decision, every word, and every silent moment carries consequences that echo far beyond the walls of the courtroom.